Welcome to Total Recall. I'm Tom Scioli, author of Jack Kirby, The Epic Life of the King of Comics, and Fantastic Four Grand Design.
I'm Matt Zeoli.
And you can follow me on Twitter at Tom Scioli. You can support my Patreon by going to patreon.com and searching Tom Scioli.
You can follow me on Instagram at cinema_tune.
I wondered just how far are they going to push this format of like every week a different like sitcom setup from like a different decade. And it's like, okay, we're gonna run out of decades eventually.
Yeah.
So like
I think we picked up at TGIF era, like it's Friday night and the moon is like gonna have some fun, show you how it's done. TGIF.
Yeah, they because it was kind of like, okay, if we're going into the 80s, which 80s is it gonna be? You know, so it kind of like they mixed and matched a couple different 80s, because the opening, like we've talked about, Bridget and Bernie, and we've talked about Family Ties, and like the opening for the 80s is like 100% Family Ties, where they have the family painning, and they're like putting in all the colors.
Yeah, like it like that episode bleeds a little into we get some like early 90s TGIF 2 and like Growing Pains.
Yeah,
I think that you see Kirk Cameron mutate or whatever.
Yeah, turn into Bible Man. Didn't he become Bible Man? Or that was Willie Ames. Yeah, his best friend on the show was Boner Stabone was the guy's name, and that was like way past when you could like get away with using the word boner. Like I understand in the 50s they use boner and be like, what do you mean, what are you talking about?
I love the like baseball and NFL. It's like best boners and gaffes VHS. Biggest boners.
that was like in comics and in like internet comics meme stuff. There was an issue in the 50s of Batman called Batman's Biggest Boners, and it was like the Joker. He's like, and like every panel is like completely quotable, and it's like I'm gonna make the biggest boner Gotham City's ever seen. Wait till Batman sees this boner I come up with.
Wait till a Batman lays his eyes on this boner.
When Batman sees this boner, it's gonna cause him to make his own boner.
Look at that! The Batman has a boner of his own.
When they had Boner on Growing Pains, it was like, they knew what they were doing.
Or Stinky. Which one was he from? Was that Mr. Belvedere?
Oh,
there was some guy named...
Okay, because there was Stinky was in the 50s in Abbott and Costello. That was played by Joe Besser.
Yes.
From the Three Stooges, he played Stinky. But yeah, I don't like Stinky Sullivan. Wasn't that?
Yes,
that was Mr. Belvedere.
You think that should took place in Pittsburgh, maybe?
Yeah, it took place in Beaver Falls.
Okay,
and I remember like I that was one of the things I learned when I first came to Pittsburgh, that like, oh, that's like Beaver Falls is like a real place, and it's like right outside of Pittsburgh, and I remember even like as a kid on Mr. Belvedere, like him making a reference, because there's an episode where Wesley turns Mr. Belvedere into immigration, because he's like mad at Mr. Belvedere, and it's like pretty late in the series. He turns Mr. Belvedere into immigration, and then when they come to take Mr. Belvedere away, Wesley like feels really bad, and he's like, oh, I wish I hadn't done it, and I'm so sorry, Mr. Belvedere. He's crying or whatever. Mr. Belvedere's like, oh, I'm sure that they would have found me eventually here in Beaver Falls.
You didn't make my eggs this morning, Mr. Belvedere. I'm calling INS.
And Mr. Belvedere had like a Satanism episode too. They had an episode where Bob Uecker and his wife like make these like new friends, and they're so nice and stuff, and then they're gonna join some like social club or whatever they're part of, and then like everybody starts like putting on these like red costumes and like dancing and stuff, and they realize that it's like a Church of Satan event that they went to.
They should have known something was up when they got to the door. They're like, the password is Fidelio.
The WandaVision, it's got those elements. It's got like the Family Ties elements, and then it has like parts of the Family Ties set. It has those like stained glass windows and stuff, and then there were also like TGIF elements, I guess.
Yeah, like it was kind of
blending in the 80s.
Yeah, and they got into like, little Full House-ish in that house there, and like Family Matters or Step by Step. Actually, that house was pretty step by step. On TGIF, I love Perfect Strangers so much.
Sure. Yeah, Perfect Strangers, to me, like, feels like that was, like, the beginning of TGIF. Like, it started pre-TGIF, and then when TGIF started happening, it was like the show, like the beginning of it, and all that other stuff kind of came after.
And they were in the apartment at the beginning. Then I think we talked about shark jumping on this show a lot. I think the show made a jump the shark when they moved into like the big like manor house on there.
Yeah, I think that was like the final season, and that was when it was really becoming like a TGIF show. Because like I don't know if you remember, but like when Perfect Strangers started, it was kind of like risque. It was kind of like oh, it's a little bit. You know, like they're pushing the boundaries. Like the commercial they keep showing was like Balky like squeezing his butt and saying, "I'm doing buttock pinches." And so that was like it was like one of those shows like where it's like, oh, I don't know if I want you kids watching that show. That show looks dirty.
I watched so much of that when I was little, and like I'm just obsessed over it. There's an episode I just remember Bronson Pinchot like running to the window, and he sees Arnold Schwarzenegger. What did he do? He's like, with a pinch my buttocks. He like runs to the window and he goes, "Arnold, loved you in Twins."
And there were like a lot of mutations that show went through too, because it was like there were some characters who like kind of reminded me of Sanford and Son a little bit, where it would be like every week it would be like the same actress, but she'd be playing a completely different character. And it was like so like. In the beginning, they like lived above this store where Larry and Balky worked, and Mr. Twinkasetti was their boss, and then Mrs. Twinkasetti was his wife. And then like a little later, like maybe like a season or two after, Larry gets his dream job of working at the Chicago Chronicle.
Okay.
Because he always wanted to be a reporter, so he's working at the Chicago Chronicle. And now, like, there's no more Mr. Twinkasetti. But Mrs. Twinkasetti is now a completely different character named Lydia. It's the same actress, but she's playing this other character. You're supposed to you're not supposed to remember any of this stuff. I don't know what they think is going on, but you're not supposed to remember.
I remember it.
They marry what are they?
Jennifer
and Marianne.
Marianne.
Yeah, they married Jennifer, and then they get a house.
The house.
That was when I started checking out of the shows, when they got the house. But I remember there was like the one episode because like they would always compare. Larry and Balky to like Laurel and Hardy. So there was like the one episode where they're like fixing up their house, and then they're kind of like imagining like, oh, what if we were Laurel and Hardy, and then all of a sudden they're actually like Laurel and Hardy and like hitting each other with 2x4s.
I can't get enough of like I'll be like brushing my teeth and I'll just be like Larry Appleton.
Of course, I'm Larry Appleton. The thing I always think of from that show is like there's like the one episode where I think it might be the first episode with Marianne and Jennifer, where it's like Larry's like, I got us a couple of dates with 2 stewardesses, and so now we got to get ourselves in shape. So then they start like working out like they've never worked out before, and then it's like it's time for the date to start, and they like can't move at all. Like that, I always like anytime like if I like work out too hard or something, it's like I'm always thinking of that episode.
When I heard Bronson Pinchot,
I don't. Yeah, Bronson Pinchot is how I always thought with like just hit the T softly like Bronson Pinchot. Like
Pinchot,
not Pinchot, but like Pinchot.
Friend of the show, Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah, Charles Bronson Pinchot.
His father Charles. When I heard him talk without his Balky, I was like that rocked my like. I was like, oh my gosh.
It feels like a betrayal. And, yeah, like it would be like seeing him on like a talk show or seeing him on like Alan Thicke's Thick of the Night or the Pat Sajak show or whatever it was like the show, the talk show back then.
I forgot about the Pat Sajak show. I didn't know about the Thick of the Night.
In the Thick of the Night hosted by Robin Thicke. Hosted by Alan Thicke. I'm getting my Thicks mixed up. But yeah, like it felt like a betrayal here, and it was also like the Balky character is so like sweet and guileless that like just like seeing the real Bronson Pinchot, and then he like cracks a joke or whatever. It's like, hey,
how dare you? Yeah. Like see him in like True Romance or like.
Yeah, I mean he was like so good in Beverly Hills Cop.
Oh my gosh. Serge.
Yeah, he's in it for like 2 seconds, but like it's like you think of him being in it more because like he's so memorable in it, And then like he's not even in Beverly Hills Cop 2, but you still think he's in it because he's like you know,
must have just missed the Sanders section.
That's like another thing that I was thinking where he's like, it's not sexy, it's animal.
What's that guy's name?
Yeah, I don't know his name. You mean the character? It's Quicksilver. His name, Quicksilver is the superhero. I don't know that they ever refer to him as that, but his name's
Pietro.
Pietro.
Whenever he showed up, at first I got taken aback. I'm like, whoa, Kato Kaelin.
A different actor playing Pietro in the Marvel movies, and then he's the actor who played Quicksilver or Pietro in the X-Men movies. It's like a different actor, different continuity or whatever, and I think he was probably more memorable in the X-Men movies. Like the character was more memorable in the X-Men movies than in the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies. So they're probably like, okay, well,
we're gonna bring this.
Like he won the contest between. Like they do expect you to be like really like well versed in the Marvel movies and paying super close attention to like I could imagine it, feeling like a lot of homework maybe to somebody who's not as like, because like I also like. I mean, like, I make it a point to see, like, all of these movies. Like, I don't think I've missed any of the Marvel movies. But I don't know that too many other people... Like, I think a lot of people are just kind of like, oh, this one looks interesting. I'll go see this one. Oh, this one, not as much. I'll skip this one.
We were on a roll.
Yeah, before, COVID locked... And there's also, like, I don't know if you're picking up on it, but they're, like, picking up on Captain Marvel threads. Because, like, Monica Rambeau... Like it was like a very kind of like a subtle thing in Captain Marvel, but it's like Captain Marvel's best friend is like her mother. I forget what her first name was, but the last name was Rambeau. And then just having like the comic book history, like I knew about the '80s Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau. So I'm like, oh, this is her mother. And then like later in the movies, oh, here's my daughter Monica, and it's like, okay, so they're and it takes place. In the 90s, so then it's like, okay, now Monica's all grown up, and she's gonna maybe become the next Captain Marvel. Or she also kind of had her own, like she was Captain Marvel, but then when she stopped being Captain Marvel, she like assumed her own superhero identity called Photon. So maybe they'll just skip the whole Captain Marvel, and she'll just go straight to being Photon. It seems like that's what's happening here when she starts manifesting those powers.
She's a great character, and I like the part when she got in that. Sword vehicle, like little like Armageddon looking like half-tracked thing, kind of, or not half-tracked, like a six-wheeled thing, and trying to punch through into the barrier.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm a sucker for a Halloween episode of
Sure,
shows,
yeah.
So you gotta have one. What a great choice to do the spooktacular.
Yeah, and this is the episode where it's like, okay, we're doing like a Malcolm in the Middle kind of show, like a
yes,
90s,
no, maybe. Can you repeat the question?
Because that's the other thing, like, okay, which 90s are you going to go for? So it's like they went with that where it's like there's some like talking into the camera and that kid being like, these are my parents, they kind of suck, like that kind of stuff. It's smart because like all the 50s and 60s and 70s, 80s were like a little samey. Like the black and white to color was like a change, but they're pretty much. But then that was kind of like a move forward, the breaking the fourth wall. Where
our parents are drag.
Yeah, like, this is my mom and dad. They're a couple of dorks.
Don't mind them.
Like some
my hat's
some
on like
singers,
sideways,
yeah.
like kid pop, 90s kid power stuff.
Exactly, yeah.
They're like kids rule.
Parents drool. This feels like that would be like the Halloween episode. Like they they've been pretty good capturing the different eras, and I think as they get closer to like the modern day, it like the observations become like a little fresher and more astute. I think we mentioned it in like our first episode for WandaVision of like those like 1950s and 1960s sitcom spoofs are pretty stale at this point. Like it's been thoroughly dissected and roasted for decades and decades, where like there aren't really as many takes on Malcolm in the Middle or whatever,
Because and then they even got a little like Modern Family Office kind of stuff in, where they're like doing like the mock like interviews with.
Yeah, that's the next episode after this. It's like that's what they went to the office. Like the credits are completely the office. It's like it's like the theme song's like a pastiche of like that Office theme, the
Oh, yeah,
U.S.
it
Office theme
is,
song.
yeah. Like Home Improvement or like Roseanne. It's like you just be moseying along through the season, and then they come out with their literally insanely awesome Halloween episode. It's like in Roseanne, John Goodman's guts are hanging out. I'm like, how'd they get Tom Savini to do like these special?
Yeah, because
awesome.
they went hard. Yeah, they'd all try to like gross each other out more and they'd all try to like
prank
each other and make you think that John Goodman really did get eviscerated or something.
Oh, this was a fun commercial too.
Night Court had some good
Halloween
episodes too.
Oh, Night Court. What a cast too! Like Night Court, I can watch that all like from top to bottom. Like
you could probably like do a remake of WandaVision where it's like you just pick different sitcoms, because it would have been interesting if they had like a Night Court episode.
Like Paul Benny's doing like Dan Felix.
Right, and Elizabeth Olsen has like a Marky Post haircut. Paul Bettany could have been Bull.
Oh my
He's got the height.
Harry,
the Hat. He could have been Quicksilver. Could have been Harry the Hat. When we ended episode 1, they hadn't yet, like episode 1 of our 2-part WandaVision discussion. They didn't like tell you like what's going on yet. Because it was like the episode right after episode 4 was like the one where it's like, okay, here's what's going on outside in the real world while all this is going on. So like that, and we were talking about how like we didn't know if we were going to hang in there with the show.
Yeah.
That episode, like if they had waited
another
episode, like I think we probably would have given up. But it was like, okay, cool. Now we're kind of which kudos to them on pacing, because it is like
for
when
real.
you want suspense.
If they had waited, that's spot on. If they had just dragged that out another episode, I'm like calling it time.
Yeah, like are we just gonna watch every single sitcom ever?
Catherine Hahn's character,
Agatha Harkness.
Oh, I was like, awesome. Is that a Fantastic Four character?
Yeah, she's she was the Fantastic Four's nanny, like the nanny to Franklin Richards, like when the Fantastic Four had a baby. And it's like towards the end of like Jack Kirby's run on Fantastic Four, and like one of the last like original characters that was introduced, definitely like one of the last enduring original characters. She was always kind of like portrayed as like this sort of like friendly witch. It's like, oh, we're hiring a witch to be our nanny, and like they knew she was a witch and stuff, but it's like she's just so lovable and wonderful.
Yeah.
And so like it was kind of like, okay, there's Bewitched was on, which Bewitched gets referenced in this show too.
Yeah.
And so there was already that kind of thing of like like the sweet lovable witch, and then also like. I've seen drawings, because like the look of Agatha Harkness kind of changed from like the way Kirby first penciled him to the way it eventually saw print. He initially drew her to kind of look like Margaret Hamilton, who was like the witch in The Wizard of Oz, and she looked like the way she was dressed and stuff looked specifically like Margaret Hamilton's character in a movie called The 13 Ghosts.
I have seen that, but it's just been a little bit since I can't recall her wardrobe. But is that what they were vibing on?
Yeah, I think like Jack's thought was like, because like in The 13 Ghosts, she plays like she's not quite a nanny, but she's kind of like she's like the housekeeper, and she's kind of like this protector to the kids and stuff like that. And so I think like Jack was kind of going for that, and then. Kind of, between him and Stan, I guess it got revised into the sort of like white hair look that she has.
I did see what she looked like.
Yeah, very, very different from here. And also, like, I mean, people had sort of, I'd seen like fan theories online that like, oh, this Agnes is Agatha Harkness, and that does make sense. Everybody's got like a different name, and her name gets sort of so it's like that was kind of like in my head, but I wasn't making too much of it.
Yeah.
And then she shows up in like the Halloween episode. She's wearing a witch costume, so it's like, oh, there's another. But she's been like this sort of like benevolent and friendly presence all through the series.
Yeah.
So that seemed to fit like her depiction in the comics, because she like in Fantastic Four Grand Design, I tried to push like some more a more sinister thing and more sinister motives for her, in that comic. But if you go by like the Kirby comics and Stan Lee comics, and then even the comics that people did after them in the 70s, they kind of kept her in that sort of like friendly witch mode.
I didn't see this coming at all.
Yeah, me like I should know better, but I didn't see it coming either.
Yeah, like I was surprised, and also I'm a sucker for like the like burn at the stake or like that old timey like witch stuff going on. I'm like, this is cool as hell.
It was a good twist of like that Agatha all along, is sort of like the meme or whatever now, from this, but and then like they used like the Munsters theme song as like the music, or all of these theme songs are like pastiches of things. It's
because I heard that I was like that. I'm like, what is going on here?
Munsters theme song, another great theme song, like almost like surf guitar.
Yeah.
I think they use like your comics knowledge as like misdirection. Like they use it as a way to make you assume you know what's going on, and then put a twist. So it's like, what you know from the comics, Agatha Harkness, she's there to help out or whatever, and then it's like, oh no, she's actually, the bad guy. And also like in the comics, like Wanda goes nuts, and then the whole Marvel universe has to like stop her from like destroying all of reality. So like watching this, I'm sort of assuming it's something like that, where it's like, oh yeah, Wanda is going to end this series as like this sort of super villain that everybody has to stop, and then they do stop her, but it's at like tremendous cost, and then she goes back to normal, but like all this destruction has been done or whatever. So then that ends up being a surprise when you're like, oh no, like she is sort of being like like she's manipulating, but there's some larger person who's like manipulating her.
That's awesome. And like she like puts her back into her creation, like she like joins up, or she's like, we'll keep you here and keep you around for a while or something like that. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I mean everything here spoiled, but I think everybody's watched like this. They say that like people have been watching like the hell out of this show, and like and like all those like Netflix Marvel shows, like the audience, like it's really hard to find out. Like these companies don't share their numbers, but it seems like this has been super like way more popular than any of like the Marvel shows on Netflix. Where
this is like a definite hit.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, again, it's like it's tied into the movies in a way, like and we've been starved for Marvel movies. So
what's on deck?
Yeah, Black Widow is going to come out in May.
Okay. It
seemed like that was going to be like even sort of like a minor release. Like it's not this like it's not Black Widow and versus the universe or whatever. It's just like this smaller kind of story. So
we'll check that one.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to go see a Marvel movie in the theater again. The next one I saw was Shang-Chi. Is going to be the next one. That was like
Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi is like a pretty obscure Marvel character. He's Master of Kung Fu. I think that might even be the full title. It's like Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, or whatever.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's
please.
It was initially like Roy Thomas during the 70s when he was like editor-in-chief at Marvel. He started buying different licenses and bringing in different comics from like pulp, bringing in different pulp characters. So like the most famous and successful example is he brought in the Robert E. Howard's Conan. And then that became a huge hit for Marvel that he wrote, and Barry Windsor Smith co-wrote and drew. And then and then like the other one that's even bigger but is kind of like later on was he brought in Star Wars. He negotiated the deal for like he saw some promise in some of the early the script and stuff for this science fiction.
We got two up and comers, George Lucas.
Yeah, so he he struck gold for Marvel multiple times with these sort of licensed properties. But one of the licensed properties was Sax Rohmer's Dr. Fu Manchu novels. So Shang-Chi was like a character that Marvel created specifically for the Fu Manchu comic, because like Fu Manchu is like a villain, so it's like who's going to be the hero. So they came up with this character Shang-Chi, and then also like there's some complicated stuff that goes on with these licensed comics because it's like okay, well then who owns what? So then they try to create a pretty strong dividing line of like, okay, Marvel owns Shang-Chi, Sax Rohmer Estate owns Dr. Fu Manchu. So so anyway, like Shang-Chi was Fu Manchu's son.
Okay.
And like Fu Manchu is like this criminal mastermind, but then Shang-Chi is like a good guy. It's like Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker or whatever. Like, and so that was that, and it's a really amazing comic with art by Paul Gulacy and written by Doug Munch, and it just it's just like really really great stuff, like beautifully Baroque 70s comic. So anyway, so like he's going to become the next like household name.
Do you have any Shang-Chi?
I have a stack of Shang-Chi comics you can borrow.
Ugh.
I think like the first couple issues are Jim Starlin. So
I'm
yeah, they're good comics.
100% down. That sounds so good.
This is the closest thing to a Marvel movie, and it is like once they start introducing those like elements that are going on outside, then it's like, oh, this is like the typical stuff we see in a Marvel movie, and like all the different characters, like the characters from Thor, and then they have Jimmy Woo, who like I didn't get very far into like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, so I don't know if he showed up in that.
I haven't watched that one
because like he was a character in like 1950s Marvel comics. He was like an FBI agent. This is like before sort of like the Marvel age, but it was like in the 50s, and then they brought him back in the 60s to be part of like the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic. So like he was no longer an FBI agent, now he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, and so he's in this. So I don't know if this is like his first appearance or if he was in like the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show.
I'm a big Randall Park fan, so I'm glad to see him in anything. He's funny and does a good job. And then you got Kat Dennings. I can't remember her character's name.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember her name, but she was in Thor.
Thor, yeah. You got the boss, the jerky boss.
Yeah, I don't know if I've seen him in anything, but again, it's like it's on you, like I imagine like the information's out there. It's just like how deep you want to go with the Marvel Universe stuff. This dome that they're behind is created by Wanda supposedly, and like keeps things in this sitcom reality. And then when you try to step out, there's like a barrier. But if you do get out, then you like I guess go back to being your normal self. Changes
whatever goes in there, because like whenever Monica drives that like tracks into it, when it spits it out, half of it's like a Oldsmobile or a Chrysler minivan from the 80s, and
like the Vision as he's stepping out, pieces of him start to like break off, and it's like at this point I think we're to assume that she like somehow reanimated the Vision, that like he died in Infinity War, and then and then like that she somehow brought him back to life, but that if he gets outside of this this scenario, like he's gonna like decompose or whatever. But then you find out as the series goes on that like he's completely imagined, like he's completely invented by her. He's not like a reanimated zombie. It's not like the Vision robot got turned back on. Like she just kind of created him out of whole cloth, like this new version of the Vision.
Same with like with those kids.
The kids were like too? Some kind of like magical creation, and Agatha Harkness, like she says something about how like this is how we know that you're the Scarlet Witch. You're this like ultimate magician that's been predicted for centuries, and that this is the proof because you created life, that these two kids are like actually completely alive and self-aware and blah blah blah, and you created them out of nothing, so you've got magic like I've never seen before.
They have their hat on sides like parents drool. Mom and dad are a drag. Damn it, Mom, get out of my room.
Eat my shorts.
Vision to eat their shorts. Yeah, the kids have like rollerblades on.
And the barrier expands and Vision gets incorporated into the barrier. then he's back and he's whole.
When someone tells somebody to eat their shorts, it's the funniest.
Well, especially like it could work so well in like a superhero universe where everybody's wearing shorts over their clothes to like tell somebody to eat my shorts. Now there's a circus on the edge of town, which kind of like segues perfectly into like when we start doing like our early 2000s sitcom, because that is kind of like, you know, like the evil circus or whatever.
Vision fights like his another version of who's he battling in that?
Okay,
what is the deal?
So it's like, yeah, we got this like, you know, this Vision or whatever that's there, and he's, you know, wearing like his classic Vision colors and stuff. And then like the white Vision, like a Vision where it's like the same outfit but no color, like just completely white. And that's like in the comics. Like in the comics during the 90s, the Vision changes his look. The bright red, green, and yellow was looking a little dated, a little 70s. So it's like, okay, let's make him look a little classier, a little more. I don't know. I forget if it was. I think it was the 80s, late 80s maybe. But so then, you know, he's just like all in white, like he's this glowing, luminous, kind of like Silver Surfer sort of thing. And when he shows up in this, it's like there's like a trope where it's like the risen Christ. It's like a character shows up and they've died and they've been reborn, and now they're like resplendent in white and stuff. And it's like Optimus Prime. When Optimus Prime died and then came back, he's like, okay, now he's like bathed in white and stuff. And like you see it like again, and or when Gandalf, you know, quote unquote, dies at the end of the second Lord of the Rings movie, and then he comes back in the third, and he's like,
it was,
you know, or he dies in the first one, and then he comes back in the second one, and it's like, you know, he's no longer Gandalf the Grey, he's Gandalf the White. So, because there's that trope, it's also another good sort of misdirect. Because when he shows up, it's like, oh, the you know, Vision has undergone this sort of purification process, and now the real Vision has come back, and he's, you know, this is it, this is the real Vision, and then it's like, oh no, he's the evil Vision. He's not, you know, this like sort of like the soul of the Vision. He's actually like this bad version of the Vision, or like a fight between like the red, green, and yellow Vision and the white Vision, and it is like a Superman fights Clark Kent in Superman 3. You've seen in previous episodes like they had like security cam footage or whatever of like Wanda breaking into S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters and stealing or presumably stealing the Vision's body. You know, his dead robot body, and to take back and make this guy. So they show that scene again in a flashback, and you see that she kind of like stops herself halfway through and it's like, I'm not going to do this. So and if she had stolen his body, you would feel like she was justified, because it wasn't like, because the Vision's robot body is made out of pure vibranium. So when she goes to S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, they're taking him apart for spare parts because he's valuable. Yeah, it's like he's made out of gold, or something, you know, he's made out of something more valuable than gold. So they're just breaking him apart, and it's like, that just seems so wrong, you know, to this like, you know, this Avenger, you know, this like great superhero.
The S.H.I.E.L.D.'s like, we're gonna gank the copper out of this guy.
Exactly. She would have been totally justified in taking, and like you assume that's what happens, but then she does it. She's like, okay, and then she goes, you know, to New Jersey and you know, creates this, you know, Vision out of her memories of him and out of her love for him or whatever. This, you know, that's like completely, you know, magical, you know, completely created by her magic. So the white Vision that he fights is that robot body, put back together and re-added. So now it's like the soul of the Vision that Wanda created or recreated is fighting the body of the Vision, like the sort of soulless, you know, body.
They have that like interaction at the end too. They're like in the library.
Yeah, they talk it out, and they talk about the ship of Theseus and stuff. And how many times can you replace the brush of a broom and the head of a broom before it's a different broom? You know, that idea.
Monica Rambeau.
Yeah, so she's in, and she's wearing sort of like a Starfleet uniform, which I guess that'll like become her costume or whatever. In the 80s, she was the leader of the Avengers for a little while. That was like my introduction to Captain Marvel. Like the whole Captain Marvel concept was to me was the Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel, and she could like turn into light. She would, she would just, she could just turn into different forms of light.
Later in the episode, when she's getting shot at, she like
she starts to glow. Yeah, it's all coming together. But we were talking about the two visions fighting each other. So like one is like the body and one is the soul, and then they have a conversation, and then the two merge. Like they become one. They become like they come to an understanding and become a complete vision. And it's like, this is all stuff like, sometimes you're watching these movies and it's like, you just kind of feel like the screenwriting classes, coming through, where it's like, okay,
Yeah, she like saves a cat earlier.
Right. Yeah, and of course there's Chekhov's gun.
Where they're like, we're gonna meet cute.
He, sort of rectifies with has the big fight, which is one of those sort of satisfying, Carl Jung kind of things, him fighting himself, and then they unify the two parts of his self sort of come together, and then Wanda has her battle with Agatha, and with Agatha's backstory with Salem witch kind of stuff, and then that Scarlet Witch, she's the Scarlet Witch, she's like the ultimate sorcerer supreme or whatever, and that it's like a dark magic, and that she's been controlling, mind controlling all these people in this village. There's a thing in comics in that Jack Kirby created in DC, where it's called a thing that Jack Kirby created for the New Gods and Forever People and Mr. Miracle, called the anti-life equation. And it's this equation that Darkseid is looking for, and that if he gets it, what it'll mean, it's the outside control of all thought. So he'd be able to sort of mass mind control people and get them to just become these puppets, just be able to control all and the way Scarlet's powers sort of or the way the Scarlet Witch's powers manifest in this show seems very similar to the anti-life equation of Kirby's anti-life equation. Just making people do all this stuff, and they don't want to do it, but they're doing it, and they got a tear in their eye.
I'm doing the robot, and they're like, "You're not under any control." They're like, "Please stop, sir."
Scarlet Witch and Agnes, they have their big blowout fight, and it's all the screenwriting 101 boxes get checked up, but again, these formulas are satisfying. Yeah, as a whole, the thing works. I feel it's that cliche of it's a long movie, it's a super long movie, but because it's episodic, you can pace it a little differently and have a slow burn that maybe wouldn't work as well in a movie.
Yeah, this would look pretty cool in a theater.
Yeah, it has as those larger elements come in, it does start to have that
bigger feel.
TV is the perfect medium for this story that very directly references TV, but yeah, I could see with minor changes it could have worked really well in the theater.
Yeah.
And if they did have I'm sure it's inevitable that they'll have some kind of re-release of this in the theater. I'd check it out. It pays off. It comes together, and
it definitely does. I'm glad we stuck with it.
Yeah, and I really liked the Vision character when he first shows up in Age of Ultron and stuff and as the movies played out, he did have some key, he has a key moment in Infinity War, but I felt after his introduction in Age of Ultron, we didn't get enough of him. I would have liked to have seen more of him. We don't just see him as Dick Van Dyke or whatever. In this, we get to see him flying around and shooting lasers and blah blah.
It's awesome, and perfect casting too. Paul Bettany with it's perfect casting meets character. Mm-hmm. I think they got it right. And
you're right with these comics characters, especially it's a character that that I've read about my whole life or whatever. I think when I was a little kid, I had a before I read any Avengers comics or anything, I had a folder that had the Vision on it. That's awesome. All I knew about him was just the little bit it was comics on this folder, printed on this folder, and it was oh, here's a super cool looking superhero I've never heard of, and he so that was my introduction to the Vision. So it's But anyway, I've had like this character in my head for like decades, and then casting is always tough for that kind of stuff. It's like, oh, you know, Superman, does that seem like Superman? Does that seem like Batman? But he does read as the same like character from those comics. It was good casting.
Like even just like his look and his like delivery.
His delivery, yeah, the way he carries himself, it does fit the character really well.
Yeah, I'm like, they nailed it.
Yeah, when Elizabeth Olsen kind of goes in Agnes's basement looking for her kids, and then that's when we realize, you know, there's something sinister going on. We see art. There's sort of like the sci-fi branch of the Marvel universe, but then there's also like the magic,
the mystic,
you know, the mystic branch. Yeah,
that's cool. I'm all about like.
And they have their own like phony baloney version of the Necronomicon.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, now we're seeing the sort of like Sixth Sense thing where we're seeing like all the things that we thought were one thing, and now we're seeing what they really were. I was talking about like the comic, the Vision comic that Tom King wrote and Gabriel Walta drew, and how this, you know, takes a lot of inspiration from that, and in that he creates a dog, you know, the Vision creates a dog named Sparky, and Sparky dies. So like, you know, it plays out differently in this. One of
She's
the
like, I killed Sparky.
Yeah. She takes that's like, okay, you were talking about saving the cat, like
killing the dog.
Killing the dog, yeah. Saving the cat marks you as the hero, and then killing the dog marks you as the villain. When we were talking about that comic before, like I hadn't read it in a while, so and I was saying that like the Vision creates like a whole family for himself, and they're all just based on like aspects of his own psyche. But then after we had that conversation, I went back and like I never read the second book of like the second volume of that Vision. So I read this. I reread volume 1, and then I read volume 2, and so it's like in that one, it's like the Vision had this like crystal that had all of Wanda's like memories in it, and so he took that and then created like a wife for himself, like a robot wife that was basically like based on Wanda's memories and stuff like that. So like it did have like a Wanda and Vision element to it, and then
that's awesome.
And then like, and Agatha Harkness was involved in that too. But again, she was like benevolent, like she was, and she kind of like has this vision. She sees a vision where she sees, you know, this huge catastrophe happening where like where like the Vision, you know, turns against the rest of the Avengers, and the rest of the Avengers have to, you know, come and fight the Vision and stuff. So again, like it was interesting seeing the parallels, but they do in this take that basic setup and then kind of, you know, turn it into something else. But it's definitely like built on that groundwork.
After director Peter Weir watches WandaVision, he recuts Master and Commander for all of Paul Bettany's scenes. He's like looks like Vision. He's like, they're like, drop anchor, and it shows him like in his costume on the boat.
The Vision edit.
The Vision edit.
I guess we have to note that like they also come up with like an in-story explanation for all the sitcom stuff, that like when Wanda was growing up and like her childhood was very stressful, but then they'd turn on the TV and watch the Dick Van Dyke Show, and then they'd flip the channel and watch you know, Brady Bunch, and then, you know, blah blah. You know.
During the Brady Bunch episode, Cindy had like her like little like doll, like
Kitty Carryall, yeah.
Kitty Carryall, and it made me think of I wanted when I was little like the My Buddy. Do you remember?
My Buddy.
My Buddy.
Yeah.
And I didn't end up snagging him, or like Monster or My Pet Monster.
My Pet Monster, yeah.
That My Pet Monster doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, My Buddy, which became like the basis for Chucky.
My Buddy. Good guys.
The good guys, yeah.
We mentioned Hunt for October, like for some reason I'm always bringing Hunt for October up, but there's like they start speaking like Russian, and then it just like switches over, and like everyone just talks in their own voice. Like Sean Connery's like, Mark, my name is Marco Rangish.
That thing of like phasing the language, like
I'm always interested in how they do it.
You know what, like, you know, like I'm like, if you have a movie and it takes place in ancient Greece and everybody's speaking English, you don't gotta explain. Like, no, I get it, I understand. But some people want like an
explanation. I'm always
so it's like those interesting little
doing.
little movie tricks to kind of get. I mean, I thought Inglourious Bastards did a really good
I was thinking
job
about that too.
of that. Yeah,
Yeah,
of
like multiple
coming up
languages
and coming up with rationales
smells.
to switch it to English.
Yeah, I actually was thinking about that earlier.
But yeah, I'm completely fine with suspending disbelief, and it's like it might have been interesting to see Clash of the Titans entirely in ancient Greek, but I'm glad they were speaking English.
I'm really glad that they switched to speaking English.
Well, because that was a big selling point. That was a big selling point for Mel Gibson's Jesus movie, where
what
it was like
called? Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ, where it was like, this is the only movie filmed entirely in ancient Aramaic. In comics, for a while, it was fashionable in comic books to get around that thing. Because it used to be like, okay, in like a Captain America comic, Captain America would be it would be like World War II, he's in Germany, and then you'd have like two German soldiers like talking to each other and saying, "Wie will," like they talk like that, and it's like that was like. But then it's like, okay, that's corny. So then in the 70s, they started doing a thing where they'd have what are these called? Not parentheses, but like the
brackets.
They'd have whatever those are called. Tell us in the comments, or keep it to yourself. But they'd have those things like around the words, and then there'd be like a little asterisk, and then the asterisk it would say, translated from German, or translated from whatever. And so that's how so you just see those brackets. But then it's like eventually it's like, what, just leave those brackets off, and we'll get it. We understand. It's like Salem witch kind of stuff, like, and you were saying like, that's like you're into that, like you love when they show this kind of stuff, and it is it's
old timey.
It's old timey. It's like Jungian imagery. It's like part of our collective unconscious, but like it bothered me in this, and it bothers me in general, the way people sort of talk about and deal with and understand this like Salem witch kind of stuff, because it seems like an awful lot of people like people would be like, oh, I'd love to, go to Salem around Halloween. It's probably real creepy, and and like I get the impression that a lot of people believe that the Salem witch trials, that they were actually prosecuting real witches with magic powers and Satan and all this kind of that like, and so then it kind of makes the Puritans who executed these innocent women unfairly, it makes them seem kind of sympathetic, because like, oh no, they were executing real like witches who had evil magic powers, and we're stealing everybody's soul. It's like wait, let's just take a step back, and no, it's like there's no such thing as any of this stuff.
They were just using it as an excuse to kill people.
Yes, it was psychos killing innocent women and rationalizing it by saying that they had magic powers. Like, can we all like be on the same page on this and not like romanticize this era or make it seem like, oh, spooky ghost stuff. It's like no, it was like crimes against humanity that were going. It was men in power persecuting innocent women, and in some cases men too. I think there were like some men that were killed as like warlocks or whatever. But it's like let's kind of set the record straight on this thing, and like as much fun as all this like, oh, spooky Salem and stuff. It's like there were hocus pocus. There were no witches there. There was no magic there. There was no Satan. There was only people in power either like panicking or through like real like malice, killing people, using it as an excuse to kill people that they knew had committed no crime. And it's probably irresponsible, because I do see a lot of like misunderstanding of like what really happened there. And this show's not helping. It's not helping. Like
that's
like
I know. That's because
they've been having these like Muppet episodes with like disclaimers and stuff. And I think this needs a disclaimer of like describing what the Salem witch trials were, and because I think there's a lot of people out there who really don't know and really think that the Salem witch trials were these like spooky the witch from Witchy Pooh and the Wicked Witch of the West from Oz came to America and started like stealing the souls and zapping
those guys,
innocent pilgrims.
They were,
and then the pilgrims got together and got these witches out of there. They did the Lord's work, but it's like no, this was a tragedy. Those witches weren't going to burn themselves.
They weren't going to burn themselves. Somebody had to take care of business.
It's a dirty job, but somebody had to do it. Yeah, and I've heard I've seen people refer to a witch hunt and not understanding what a witch hunt means, and they think it's like a bunch of witches hunting a person. It's like that's not what
they're like. Yeah.
So we're doing here on Total Recall, we're doing a service telling you about what the Salem witch trials were, what a witch hunt is. A witch hunt is when you go after somebody with no evidence or fabricated evidence and create this whole elaborate story to unfairly persecute someone. The parallel is you're calling it a witch hunt because you're comparing it to the Salem witch trials, where the people in power in Salem were going after women and arresting them and murdering them under false claims of them having evil magic powers that they were using to put the whammy on people.
And then Emperor's New Clothes moves where people they're like, we can't we gotta
right, we gotta go along with this.
If you drown, you're innocent.
Yes, creating these impossible these no-win situations.
The pressing of Giles Corey. He's like, more weight.
Fantastic Four Grand Design, when I sort of made her into sort of, this more sinister character, I did kind of wonder afterwards of was that maybe a little cliche? Maybe, Jack Kirby and Stan's take of making her this kind of benevolent character, having sort of sinister overtones, but being, genuinely benevolent. That's that's kind of outside of the box and kind of inventive. But then when Agnes turns out to be the heavy in this, I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I'm in tune with stuff. I made the right move. The Marvel bigwigs thought it would be a good move to do this, and my thing's right in line with it. It's Wanda's childhood, and it's Procovia or whatever fictional country it is, but the dad comes home with a suitcase full of bootleg DVDs of American TV shows.
Because when they put it on, it shows somebody in the movie theater filming.
When you were a kid, do you remember just kind of walking down the street and there'd be a guy with selling bootleg DVDs of movies that were new in theaters?
Yeah, I would see those at the we go to the comic convention somehow.
Yeah,
somebody was I think we mentioned it before, the holiday special.
Yeah, that's how you'd see the Star Wars holiday special. That's how you would see the Roger Corman Fantastic Four. That's how you'd see, the Japanese Spider-Man TV show.
Yeah,
the Dick Van Dyke Show. I created by Carl Reiner. I laugh out loud.
At it's so funny.
Show. Yeah, the Dick Van Dyke Show is pretty. The jokes are pretty sophisticated, and it's also in the 50s, you'd get these kind of or maybe it was 1960 when that show came out, but you'd get these very self-aware kind of shows, and it was okay, it's a sitcom about a guy who writes for a TV show.
That's ahead of its time.
So yeah, you've been watching the WandaVision finale.
What a finale! We went the distance. We got the whole.
The whole hero's journey, the whole screenwriting 101 journey.
Yes, save the cat.
Yeah, they saved the cat. They killed the dog. They fought their dark reflection or light reflection in this case. There was the man of two worlds, the coming to or woman of two worlds, the coming.
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun made an appearance. Archetypes left and right. There were witches and wizards.
My head, I laughed so hard. I put a burst of blood. One of these episodes.
I mean, keep these shows coming. I'm on board. I'll see what else you got in the pipeline. I don't know what other if there's another Marvel TV show.
I haven't seen anything.
Announced. Yeah. I mean, I know Disney Plus. I don't know if they did this for Soul when that came out, because I didn't have Disney Plus at the time. So when I got Disney Plus, Soul was on there for free, but. Raya and the Last Dragon is like, if you pay, like you can pay like $30 or whatever on Disney Plus to watch it. So I don't know if that's going to become the model, you know, for this stuff, is like, okay, just pay like a premium to watch it when it's like new, and then
kind of like if it's like $30, maybe like, you know, get your friends to chip in to do like a big like screening.
Well, that's the
like
thing. That's kind of that's like why they
moves.
charge $30, because it's like I guess they feel like you're gonna, whatever they charge, you're gonna cram your crew in there, and maybe even charge money.
You might make a little scratch
have
on
like
that.
a little house party kind of.
All right, we're gonna watch the Royal Rumble. It's like we gotta pull our money for this PPV.
Maybe the whole Marvel movie thing will migrate to streaming services and just be like original streaming program, you know, like and then they'll have sort of like lower tier ones like WandaVision that are free, but then they'll have like the upper tier ones that they maybe spend some more money on, that they charge a premium for.
Like the next Avengers movie, it's gonna be $50.
How do we siphon money out of your pockets?
Age of Moneytron or whatever.
Age of Ticketron.
Age of Ticketron. The Fandanganator.
Yeah, because it's like now, you know, Ticketron, and now that the ticket scalpers are in your house. Vacuum cleaner hose like stuck in your pocket.
It's one of those bank things. You put the money in, it like shoots.
This is what our show is all about. It's all about you know, spending a lot of, you know, energy dissecting you know, corporate product that's cynically produced corporate product that deprives creators of credit and compensation.
Absolutely.
You know, Wanda and Pietro, you know, they start off as part of Hydra in like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. In the Marvel comics, they started out as part of Magneto's Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. So it was like they maintain the same story beat of like, oh, they started out as being sort of junior assistants to the bad guys and then they become Avengers, and it's like when they were making the Marvel Universe movies, they didn't have access to the X-Men, so it's like, okay, well, we'll stick them in with Hydra.
Is that the
That's the Soul Gem, was it, or the Mind
Gem? Oh yeah, it was on Vision's
that was on
forehead.
Yeah, it's one of the Infinity Gems, and I guess it's like buried inside the Cosmic Cube or Loki's staff or the Tesseract or whatever.
Oh great! The Infinity Stone's in Vision's butt. He's like,
he's gonna pluck it out with that. That's why he's got that thick glove to like. And I guess I guess Cindy Brady's Kitty Carryall doll is supposed to be like a stand-in for the Vision. You know, this sort of like artificial being that like she imbues with life and love and that her love kind of like animates it or brings it to life.
That is interesting. With that Kitty Carryall, or I forgot all about that from the Brady Bunch.
We didn't get you know, Elizabeth Olsen showing up in like a Full House.
I know those
situation.
Those Olsens gotta embrace the.
Oh, and Susan Olsen was Cindy Brady, so I don't know if we got some stuff going on there.
Well, who was? Is it Mike Lookinland?
Was Bobby Brady? Yeah, yeah, Lookinland. That's a pretty cool name.
Yeah.
You know, Marvel Cinematic Universe doesn't have access to the X-Men, so there's like this story. You know, the Phoenix Saga in X-Men, the Dark Phoenix and the Phoenix Saga. It's a huge part of X-Men history and like is like continually referenced to this day in Marvel Comics. So in this, they kind of make Scarlet Witch into they make Wanda into sort of like the Phoenix kind of thing, where it's like she's got all this power, she's a good guy, but then this power is like a dark power and it starts to take over her, and then she has to have this internal struggle against this power, and then she can like, you know, sort of fly and like shoot all this light out of her and have insane powers and stuff like that. So it's like they're doing like the Dark Phoenix stuff, but under a different under a guise that they do have complete access to, unlike the X-Men stuff.
Once again, they're like working with what they got.
So then they're actually watching Malcolm in the Middle and having what's his Walter White that played the dad,
Bryan Cranston,
and then he's wearing kind of like a Paul Bettany outfit, you know, like the Vision with this like red sweater, and then like the roof collapses on him. and the Vision's kind of like, you like this stuff? Like what as she's like staring at it. And this is like a flashback to like, you know, like real stuff that happened to them, not part of like this fantasy that she generated. And then when she like at the end, when she kind of like lets go of the fantasy, like it all disappears. Like because I thought the fantasy would go away, but then the Vision would still be standing there because he's incorporated himself into like the actual Vision body. But no, he disappears. And I forget, did the kids disappear too?
I think they might have like started to disappear.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like Back to the Future or whatever when his siblings disappear.
I was actually looking up the Back to the Future, the Mickey Mouse shirt the dude was wearing.
Yeah.
I was gonna try to. You might see that on an episode here.
It's right before you disappear.
Oh no! I don't want to be erased from existence.